If you've been following the goings-on in the retro space of late, I'm sure you're more than familiar with Bitmap Bureau's Xeno Crisis, a game which takes the twin-stick arena shooter and amps things up to 11 with plenty of modern design sensibilities in place. One of its more unique elements is the vast variety of platforms, both modern and classic, which it's been made available on. And that of course brings up the bigger question. If you're not the kind of player who wishes to grab it on more than one machine, which is the one you might enjoy it on the most? Going totally old school and playing it on the Mega Drive, or perhaps picking it up on modern hardware and enjoying it there? This is Beyond The Scanlines, a series focusing on interesting games on classic computing and gaming platforms. Xeno Crisis has you investigating Outpost 88, a research colony which has sent an ominous distress call with talks of multiple fatalities and an alien presence causing chaos. Your mission is to investigate the colony for the source of this problem and rescue any survivors you encounter along the way. The colony is made up of 7 differing areas, and you'll work your way through each of them a room at a time. As you enter a new room, threats begin their onslaught in waves, and only once you've cleared them all out, the doors open and allow you to progress to the next room. Within each room, you'll find an assortment of pickups. Defeated aliens will drop dog tags, which you can trade in for upgrades at the end of each area, to new weapons, ammo packs, health packs, and security keycards. All of these are very handy tools to ratchet the odds of survival that bit closer in your favour. The final challenge within each area is dispatching the boss alien. Battles which involve a combination of learning the boss's attack patterns whilst finding out their weak spot in order to deliver a volley of massive firepower to take them out and move on to the next area. Now, with an intense action game like Xeno Crisis, the first and arguably most important element is in the control scheme. Essentially, the split is between the complex control setups of modern game hardware and their more restricted retro counterparts. At the time I'm preparing this, the only retro release available is the lead Mega Drive version, which, by virtue of supporting both 3 and 6-button gamepads, gives you a variety of setups. Using a 3-button pad is mostly simplified, particularly around the firing, which is you start firing by holding down B. This locks you to the direction you're facing, and if you want to change direction, tapping A or C will rotate you a step at a time. In other words, if you want to toss a grenade or go into a defensive role, you'll need to stop firing first. Now granted, with the limited ammo that Xeno Crisis has, you shouldn't always be holding down the fire button, but if like me, you're used to your twin-stick shooters and the constant firing that many of them make you do, then yes, it's going to be a mechanic you really need to get used to. If you jump over to having a 6-button controller, things do feel a bit more modern. The A, B, X and Y buttons now form a cluster which acts kind of like a second stick. Holding them down lets you fire in the given cardinal direction, and if you hold a pair of them, like A and X, you'll now fire diagonally. I found this mostly works pretty well, except for the fact that the buttons don't quite make a perfect diamond, as those kind of buttons do on other systems. When sitting down with modern platforms, these are far more familiar. You'll use the left thumbstick to move and the right to fire. The shoulder buttons will handle pushing you into a roll and also tossing grenades. If you're a fan of arena shooters on modern platforms, then this scheme happens to be a familiar one, which fits the player's hands like a well-loved glove. As for those Mega Drive controls, it can be a bit unusual to get to grips with how the A, B, X, Y buttons are configured for firing using the 6-button layout. Depending on what kind of controller you're using, you might find it a bit of a twist to do so. It can also feel a little unnatural to use the Z and C buttons for rolling and tossing grenades. Honestly, I found it a bit too easy to accidentally trigger in the heat of battle, especially when relying on that sense of touch to make sure you're hitting the right direction for your shots. On the 3-button controller front, it does bring an element of nostalgia into it, especially against other shooters on the platform. But of course, there's also the element of being a bit more fiddly and a little less responsive in comparison, especially when it comes to needing to rapidly switch direction, to change your priority and focus on other threats. When it comes to visuals, the biggest difference is in how the extra resolution offered by modern displays is utilised. The most obvious difference is around the additional screen real estate you get with a widescreen aspect ratio. This primarily allows for status information, your health, remaining ammo and grenades, plus collected dog tags to be permanently on screen. And this generally helps out the beginning player in keeping track of all of these whilst in the middle of battle. For the Mega Drive players, you mostly have to work at a glance. Whilst you see these appear above your character's head as you gain or lose health, collect a new weapon and see its countdown timer, it's something that could certainly be missed at a glance amongst the chaos or amongst sprite priorities. One thing that genuinely excites me with the Mega Drive release is really that very little is lost over the embellishments added for those modern platforms. Elements like bullet casings from your gunshots and acid pools which are spit out by some of the enemies, especially those in Area 3. All up, it's incredibly impressive from a visual angle and a technical one in seeing just how much the coders have really gotten out of the hardware. These visuals are lush, well animated and very clear. Very top-notch work indeed in my book. Finally, the sound. As with the visuals, the soundtrack on offer here is incredibly well crafted with some great tunes to listen to and plenty of decent sound effects to go along with them. On the modern systems, you do get better quality samples, and that's no surprise, but you also get additional speech lines from the announcer as you enter rooms. Whilst these are a detail that aren't really required, they really do help the atmosphere in little ways as you continue to work your way deeper into Outpost 88. So all up, Xeno Crisis is one incredibly polished release. Regardless of whether you're going to go down the retro route and enjoy it on your Mega Drive, or instead prefer the versions for modern systems, you're going to absolutely have an experience which is engaging, frenetic, polished, and incredibly exciting to play. There's an intense charm to experiencing it on classic hardware, watching the absolute chaos unfold on screen as you slowly work your way through Outpost 88. The way in which the user interface is handled within the smaller screen area may serve as a bit of a hindrance to those starting out, but it means the screen is 100% dedicated to the action. On modern systems, the more familiar control setup means it's easier to pick up and get engaged with the action without that sensation of having to fumble about getting used to the control scheme for those first few plays. That being said, if you're patient enough to stick with it, the controls do mostly work on the Mega Drive, and depending on your level of nostalgia, you may actually want part of that and its character for your battling experience. No matter which version you play though, Xeno Crisis is more than worth your time to check out, and easily has to be one of the best experiences to round out 2019 in gaming. Which brings me to the end of yet another Beyond The Scanlines. If you appreciated this look back at an interesting gem, why not leave a thumbs up on the video? Got some thoughts? Drop me a comment and let's chat. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing to the channel, and yes, ringing the bell to be notified the moment new videos are uploaded. Most importantly, thank you all so very much for watching.